Welcome back. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show. Now, the pastoralist community in Kenya wants to form its own party, and this morning we want to have that discussion. We want to talk more about that, as well as the politics in the country and the region as well. And in studio, we're joined by Honorable Bello Kero. He's a senator for Mandera County, to lead us in that conversation. And of course, Muteke Njau is here. He'll be taking your questions, comments, and suggestions on 22422, or you can get us on Twitter. The hashtag is Power Breakfast. Get communicating with us. But for now, I hand you over to Mr. Njau. Mr. Njau?
Thank you, Karibu. Mheshimiwa Senator, the President went to meet you sometimes last June. Was that the beginning of the formation of the party? Or it was
we had the Pastoralist Leadership Summit in Isiolo.
Yes.
It's a national an annual meeting, and the President was there to open it officially. So we had it last year also in Narok, and each year we hold the Leadership Summit brings together all the governors, the senators, the speakers, and the members of National Assembly from 14 pastoralist dominated counties in the country. So we are talking of about 130 leaders. In the Isiolo meeting there were about 70, which is a good turnout.
So the Pastoralist Leadership Summit. Yeah. This is an annual event for
those leaders from those 14 counties.
Maybe you can give them the names of them.
Yeah, so the 14 counties,
if you can remember,
they're spread out in 5 of the regional regions. This include Kajiado, Narok, then you go up to Elgeyo Marakwet, you have Turkana, West Pokot, you have Samburu, you have Tana River, you have Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, you have Marsabit, you have Isiolo. They have 14.
So how do you define the pastoralists?
Pastoralists are generally people in those arid and semi-arid parts of this country who engage in livestock farming.
If you look at, for instance, Kajiado or Narok.
Yes, they're basically
there are many farmers there.
They're into livestock. You know, the farming also. Farming is not just the guys who deal with crops.
Yes,
and this is also farming. All trees farming. These are all farming. But so basically, they're people who are engaged in livestock. And pastoralism means you don't have that confined zero grazing kind of farmers. You have people who have generally rangelands. That they graze their animals, that sometimes are nomadic, sometimes are not, but they generally in an open rangeland kind of situation.
Perhaps maybe the best way to describe it is nomad.
Not nomad. Because in some parts of those 14 countries, they are nomadic pastoralists, but in others they are not. They are not necessarily nomadic. They are settled. They have community lands, and they graze the animals. So they engage in livestock basically as their main source of life.
That could also describe Laikipia.
Laikipia is one of them.
Is one of them.
Yes, Laikipia is one of the 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
yes.
So you have decided to convert the leadership summit and decide now, instead of having a summit, you have a political party?
Not really. The summit is a political caucus that brings together those leaders. We've had the parliamentary pastoralist group as a caucus for many years. This one we expanded to bring both national and county levels of leadership from those counties. But what we are looking at now is that we will form a political party. Because there's a whole lot of difference between a political party.
What do you call it? Political party?
No, the name we're still at the preliminary stages. We have not defined the name. We are going to get the name and register it and so forth. But the essence is we must have a political party as a platform, really, because what we have today is all our members are spread in various political parties. Today, out of those 14 counties, about half are in Jubilee coalition, the other half is in Court coalition. And when you are in any of these political parties, there is a limit to how far you can go in pursuing the objectives of these communities. And because these parties, you know how our parties, they're all based on some ethnic or other regional interests. But we want to set up for the first time an issue-based party, a party whose main focus is to develop the economic and socio-economic development of those particular regions, which by and large these 14 regions actually account for most of the underdeveloped parts of this country. If you look at infrastructure, if you look at education, if you look at health, there are those, and surprisingly, these 14 counties represent 85% of the landmass. You know, so if you look at it that way, you would actually say that Kenya is a pastoralist country, because if 85% of the land is occupied by these pastoralists, they represent 25% of the population. Their livestock contributes to 13% of the GDP, yet they don't have that prominence, they don't have that relevance politically, they don't have that relevance if you look at the economic in allocation of resources at the national level. You find Ministry of Livestock gets 5-6 billion out of 2 trillion shillings. You know, all that support that is given to other farmers, the coffee, the tea and the sugar and maize and all others, in terms of assisting in subsidies and, you know, the development of the crops and the debts and the market and so forth. You don't have that level of support given to livestock, which we believe if it was, then, you know, the lives of those people, because those areas are also the poorest. If you look at all the indicators, they really have, they rank in the poorest regions of this country.
The former President Kibaki created a whole ministry for them.
Yeah, he created a Ministry of Northern Kenya, but was it financed? It wasn't. Now the challenge we have here is at policy level. You know, let me tell you, in this country, everything, even policies that determine how this country is developed, to a large extent is informed by political patronage. You know, so if you really don't have that political leverage, you know, then it's likely that you will not get access to resources. It's likely that you will not get policy interventions to deal with all those challenges that are in those areas. We've been trying, I'll give you an example, we've been trying for a long time to address the issue of marketing of livestock. This country, those 14 counties, has almost nearly 15 million heads of cattle. It has nearly 40 million sheep and goats. It has 3 million camels. But when you look at the marketing of livestock, last 2014 figures which are available, we only exported 185,000. A country like Ethiopia, which is really not as developed as ours, exported 2 million. Somalia, without a government, exported 5 million. I mean, it's you look at the challenges that we face is enormous, because it's not, many of you, including I'm sure you or many of us in this country, have very, you know, the only thing we know about these 14 counties is when the pastoralists are fighting, or when there is issue of a drought, or animals are dying. These are the negative, if you will, pictures that come out, really. But this is an area where we believe if the government invested in livestock seriously in the pastoralist areas, it will address the imbalance in the trade deficit significantly. This is what Ministry of Trade believes, because we have the potential to export, you know, millions of tons of beef in this country, because we have an opportunity to expand beef production in these regions. Today, those 14 counties have an opportunity for investment in minerals, in oil, in many other things, but there's no infrastructure, there's no education, there are no health systems, there are no, you cannot address all those challenges only through the little money that you get involved in devolution. And this,
how will a political party get the money?
No, you know, a political party is about this country's development is premised on political patronage. So unless we really have that leverage politically, and we have a political party that, because every time you need the support of politicians, if this government needs support in Western, it needs support in some particular region of this country, they go out of their way to do many things. You've seen it in Kericho the other day. You've seen it in parts of this country where people believe that, you know, those people are politically relevant. Then a lot of resources are pumped into those regions. But in areas where we are not even getting a visit, even getting a station, forget about getting, why are we 50 years after independence struggling to get the roads in northern Kenya tarmacked? You know, you get surprised. Why the institutions, you know, universities and so forth are not available in those parts of the country? Why are we still struggling on basic necessities? Why are they still the poorest parts of this country, and people are still engaged in stealing cattle and so forth, because there's no other livelihood, there are no jobs, there are no industries. So we are saying that I think it's at policy level, and so we are saying that can only be informed if we have a platform on which we can argue and people know that these guys, and because in this country, if you need a political Group is when you, and I think if you belong to a party, any of these coalitions now, we have members, but there is a limit to which our members can push for those things, because at the end of the day, I told my friend, what is your problem? They can't replace you in any position in which you are. So I think the important thing is that we want to have that independent platform on which we can use to leverage
Some
our
people might view this as balkanization of the country. That we need 2 or 3 strong parties, not regional parties. These are colonial outfits. You remember, during colonial time, the colonialists did not form like a formation of national parties.
Yes.
So you had a Kamba Union, Kikuyu Union, Luo Union.
Let me tell you,
this is kind of negative to some extent.
Let me explain. It is not. These 14 parties have 14 ethnic communities. They are in 5 regions. They are in every religion. So it's not ethnic-based, religious-based, or regional-based. Look at TNA. You'll automatically identify the particular region. Look at Fort K. It's a regional party for some groups, some communities. Look at URP, you largely. Why is those ones not a problem? When we say pastoralist is a problem, yet it is all the way from Narok and Kajiado all the way to Turkana to Mandera. I mean, those people have only one thing in common. It's their way of life, that pastoralism, that hardship area, that livestock, arid and semi-arid parts of. So, and again, a political party is not going to be limited to only members from there. I mean, once you form a political party,
but if I'm not
constitutionally,
if I'm not a pastoral, why would I want to join it?
Because maybe you
I don't have camels. No. I've only chicken. Why? I'm not a pastoralist.
You know,
I'm a rancher in Machakos.
And there are many reasons why people, if you look at countries in Europe, there are parties that deal with the environment, and there are people who, the Green parties and so forth, and many other parties that deal with specific issues. But people don't join them because necessarily they have got environmental issues, but they find that particular objective to be reasonable, and they want to be in that party because they find the ideals, the objectives, and the leadership, to be appropriate. So I think sometimes we have already seen people who have shown interest, by the way, from other parts of this country, who are not pastoralists. No. They say, I think you guys, we can work with you guys better than some other people.
No. If I grow tea, surely I'm not going to join a pastoralist party.
Well, if there's no party that is dealing with tea, and this one is probably the best in terms of the ideals, you'll probably come to
because the problems of emulated which take place in those counties, that they are underdeveloped, they have no infrastructure, no universities, no schools. These are economic problems that are over. The problem with that area is it was neglected because of colonialism and also post-colonial, because of the expanse of the area, and because of that thing which was called session paper number whatever of 1965, that says you develop areas that are people which you get the maximum return. Northeastern Kamos, and it's expansive. Why build a road there? That was the argument then.
Exactly.
But then the economy has changed. Now you have fuel there. You have water there in Turkana. So you probably may not need a party.
That is the main reason why we are taking this route. That it's at policy level where decisions are made. The policy makers, the decision makers in government don't value those areas. They think it's irrelevant, it's not relevant to the economy.
That
has been the thinking. When President Kibaki came into power, they did a study. You remember when they were doing those wealth creation, they did a study. They said, and this is Ministry of Finance, for every shilling invested in the so-called high potential areas today, you'll get a 1 shilling return. For every shilling you invest in the arid and semi-arid areas, which are all those pastoralist regions, you get a return of 5. These are the areas where there's an opportunity to do irrigation, massive irrigation, because land is not an issue. This is the area where resources have not been exploited. You have got all kinds of minerals, including oil. Nobody has. The reason why there is no exploitation and there is no investment is because there is no infrastructure, there is no power, there are so many reasons why people have never thought of investing. So the question is, the level of development of a particular region is dependent on the level of investment in infrastructure and other resources. So I think that policy, 1965 sessional paper, is the one that actually created that perception that this area is of no good. So I think we believe that can be changed, and it can be changed at policy level.
There's serious input from viewers, huge amount of it. Some of them maybe you may want to remember. You should form a circle instead of a political party. It's a nice topic. Why do you not allow people, other community to set business? I think that's not a proper question. That why do you not allow other people to do business in Garissa? That's not true. Please replace the word pastoralist so that people...
We are not actually going to use the word pastoralist.
So that other people can join. This is a belief from Garissa.
Yeah, the word pastoralism will not be used.
85% of Kenyan land mass that Bello Kero includes non-pastoralists. What will stop them from being victims of political persecution because they will spell the numbers and they may choose not to join the pastoralist political party. What we need in that area is Marshall Plan for the pastoralist areas.
And President Kibaki came up with a Marshall Plan, by the way. But that Marshall Plan was never implemented. Again, it's because of the political lack of political leverage, and that's what we want to do.
Very much more. I hear your passion on this matter. The pastoral community, for the pastoral community, but what we know is that you are your own worst enemies. If we look at animal farming, your fellow leaders are the ones giving Somali export the boom by encouraging cattle theft. We should not form parties on the basis of economics needs but ideologies.
Well, I think the whole thing we're talking about issue-based parties, about ideology. That's what ideology means, that you're basing your political party on some ideals, on some issues. And our issue here is very clear, that there is a part of this country, a huge region, a huge representation in this country, that if today they are given the opportunity, both at a policy level and at implementation level, then it will change not only the lives of the people in that area, but the lives of this country, because it can have significant impact on the economy. And because many countries, I'll give you examples, in Australia, large parts of Australia is just a pastoralist land. Today they are single largest exporters of beef and mutton all over the world. Africa is the only other continent remaining in the world for production of beef, because the consumption of beef is growing by nearly 20% annually, because the middle income is increasing all over the world, and those middle income earners want to go into eating consumption of beef and so forth. This is one of the few countries in Africa, East Africa, actually, this is one of the few countries where you have 85% of the land suitable for that pastoralism. So we have rangelands where there used to be range management system. It has all collapsed. There used to be livestock holding areas, KMC, a whole factory that was built up for meat production today has collapsed because nobody is putting in money. So there's no incentive in this country. There's no attention given to this whole business, which is a huge opportunity that will create jobs, that will really change their lives. Why do you want to spend billions of shillings every year feeding people in northern Kenya on relief food when they have an opportunity to invest in that part of the country and change the lives of many other Kenyans? So what we are saying is that it's time we've had a group that, political party that clearly can mainstream that view and that ideology inside the parliament and in other institutions. I think this is what is an idea we believe whose time has come, and I think it's not about the reason why all those people are their own worst enemies and they're fighting is because there's nothing else to do. You have cattle in Mandera, you cannot sell your animals for more than 20,000 shillings, and a whole a cow cannot fetch you 20,000, and you want to pay school fees. How are you going to do it? If you drive the same animal to Mombasa or to Nairobi, you get 150,000. If you export, it will even be double that amount. But when there is no institution, there is a marketing organization funded by government for every other crop, from pyrethrum to coffee to cotton to everything. There isn't for livestock. I mean, it used to be there. What happened? It was there when the Wazungus were there.
Why? When you understand, why is KMC, when did it go? Because of corruption?
I think it's about the policy makers. When you find that an institution not being relevant and you don't want to put in money, and those who have been given run it down, and then you just shut it down. I mean, really, look how many institutions have been privatized. Why don't you get serious strategic investors like we have done in many others, and get someone who can put money into that thing, and at the same time get his own market, so that you can, slaughter. In other countries, a similar plant like KMC would slaughter 20,000-30,000 heads of cattle daily. It will make you go into livestock farming yourself, and you are not from pastoralist area. Everyone will start finding that is a good business. Today, if you want to do livestock farm, a business trade, where do you go? There is no market for you. There is no holding ground. There are no, so it's a challenge.
The same argument can be made about coffee. If you look at KPC, it's collapsed. If you look at coffee board, it's the same. If you look at tea, it's the same. So they was going to form a political party.
But at least in their case, it receives attention regularly from government. The tea farmers get debt write-off, they get finance, they get a tea marketing, they have a tea development board, they have a marketing board, they have a lot of, it's just that those players inside the tea, for many years have been ripping off the poor farmers, but the opportunity the government has provided is there, really. I mean, what is important is that for you to do business, the government must provide that enabling environment. And what we're saying is that with regards to the livestock, with regards to the pastoralism in communities, that level playing field, that environment has not been really provided. And I think we're saying, give us that opportunity. And we can only do so if we can lobby and leverage it at political level.
So how do you get other people who are not pastoralists join?
By having a different name. We are not going to call the party Pastoralist Party of Kenya.
What will it be? Because you are talking about a number of counties.
The name is not the issue. The name will have a name because you will invite, according to the constitution, you cannot lock out.
It must be.
So we have to, yes. So
it must be in 22 counties.
Yes, the name will be open, and so we'll allow everybody to come in. But you will know that although we do many other things, the primary objective, our ideology will be on pastoralism, really addressing the main issues of pastoralism. But it will be open. So we are meeting this afternoon, the executive committee. Our executive committee includes governors, includes senators, speakers, and National Assembly members. And then we are meeting to discuss now the formation of the party, and we want to start the whole process of getting the party registered expeditiously. And we think there is time. 1.5 years, this country, people set up parties even 6 months to the election, and they get into power. So we have time to register, and then we will go on a membership drive, and we want to really plead with all our leaders, those who are in office now and those who are potential leaders tomorrow, to contest on that ticket, so that we have a sufficient number of people at both national and county levels who share this ideology and who really can stand up for the pastoralist region. So I think we will succeed.
Which means you are abandoning, if you are a PU, you abandon our party, you go to your...
That's obvious. I mean, if we form a political party, then in 2017, we'll be running on that political platform. That will be the essence of setting up the political party. Today we are all in different political parties, all of us in the 14 counties, all the 85 members of National Assembly from those counties are in different political parties. The same thing with the governors. But in 2017, that's what we're saying, we need to have members running on our own.
Are you likely to field a presidential candidate?
We've thought about it, and we're still thinking about it, and we think there's time, and we will look at that. We will cross that bridge when we get there.
If you do these blocks, like for instance, there are certain areas that, like North Rift, they have governors and they have formed blocks.
Yes.
The coast also.
Yes.
And
even Northeastern, they are forming a trading and economic block.
So are we not having some conflict? Will you not have conflict?
No.
Overlapping or conflict?
The economic blocks that have been set up by the county governments, basically focus on how to maximize on the economic synergies within that particular region between counties that share boundaries. They share, for example, tourism circuits, for example, some regional trade activity. The ones in North Rift, that block wants to focus on export of their tea and the other products that they produce in their county, so that the cost of marketing, the cost of of going out and doing that marketing and doing that business or trade or assisting their farmers will be reduced. I think there is benefit on when you look at the economies of scale when you're trying to work together as a team. So the economic blocks can be across different counties and different communities. Really, it doesn't have to be within the pastoralist areas. So, but this one is different. This one is when the political party will be looking at broader issues, really, that impact on and those economic. Some of the ideals of the economic blocks. For example, the ones in northern Kenya, the ones they are trying to form now between Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Marsabit and Tana River and those areas, the underlying economic base will be livestock. So instead of every county putting up an abattoir and trying to export meat, they will be looking at how they can work together to form one abattoir, or they can try to market their livestock through one particular arrangement. So they will be looking at the economic aspects of really doing business. It's about trade and business and opportunities for investors and how to attract investors to their regions and those kind of things.
So why can't it end there instead of being a political party? You belong to a political party, the ones that are there, then you do the economic, because whatever you have been talking here is mainly economics.
You know, even here now, even without the pastoralist party today, there are, if you look at regionally, you'll find the reason why the blocks are premised on this integration, like East African Cooperation, COMESA. I mean, this integration is important because the economies of scale, and because you can jointly attract investors, you can jointly so it has little to do with the political part. The politics is a different matter, because the politics actually informs what direction you can take within those economic blocks. It is the politics that will guide that, with the political leadership which will then, based on the ideologies, guide even that, whatever, how to do that business, how to invest, which areas should be focused on. So I think the political party is broad, and it cuts across all those regional blocks, because the regional blocks in Masaini here is maybe different in essence from the economic blocks in northeastern. The environment, the type of, although we are all pastoralists, even the environment is different. In Turkana, for example, they are now discovered oil, so it will not be they will not be focusing only on livestock. They will be looking at really investment in that oil industry itself, and how to get the spin-off from the oil industry to benefit the area. They'll be looking at so many other issues. So it's broader, the political party, therefore. In fact, it's necessary now that there is opportunities for investment and the exploitation of resources. This is why we even need a political one more, because today is when we now need to have our own voice, our own platform, because the opportunities are coming up in all those regions. That is the frontier for development. If you will, it is the emerging economic areas in this country. So I think if we don't have our own platform, if we don't have our own, then we will not really make an impact on the lives of our people.
The idea of devolution was to sort out those matters. Well, you are saying you are not happy with devolution as it is without a political party.
Devolution, there are political parties in this country. Maybe you need to ask why all the political parties are there.
Because of self-aggrandization.
Not really.
So self-aggrandization.
There are over nearly 30 political parties.
About 50.
About 50 political parties in this country. So it's the same all over the world. I mean, the political, everyone has got his own reason for setting up. Our case, I think there's a compelling reason. In fact, more compelling than any of this 49 or 50, if you will, most of which is based on, like you said, getting power only. Ours is just, it's not about getting power, but it's about addressing, leveraging on the governments in this country, because successive governments have ignored these regions, and we are saying that we need to have a political leverage that can focus attention on this.
But is that the situation now? I thought we have a lot of, apart from the infrastructure, the roads are going there. Can you still say that the region has been ignored? We have a lot of people from that area, or those areas, who are in power today, many.
Yes.
Despite the fact that if you compare the population and others, there are not many. Well, there are a lot of people who are very senior in government. By the way, the Kibaki government and the Uhuru government.
By the way, it's not only Kibaki, even in Moi government.
Even Moi government.
They were there. But that is the challenge. We've had people in government, but because of they're anchored in different political parties, and those political parties belong to fellows, they have not had an impact. This is why now, if you're in your own political party, you have a better leverage than being given as a very senior post in a political party of some other groups who, and you know, you just have to do what they want. You're pushing the manifesto for those particular political parties. You cannot do anything more than just push the interests of those political parties. I think we're saying let us push our own interests. What is politics? Politics is about representation of people. And you're representing the interest of your people. So if you can find a platform, if you can find a vehicle that we can use to represent the interest of our people more effectively, that is the one we want to. Why do you want to get into somebody else's bus and you become a passenger? And you, even if you are offered the best seat, even if you are offered the best seat in that bus, you are a passenger on that bus. That is the same argument that was being formed after opening multipartyism. That is what has ruined this country. Why would you want to? That's what Kibaki said when he formed DP. When Kibaki formed DP in 1992 after the opening up of the political space, why would I want to join court? I mean, at that time it was Ford. It was Ford then. And he said why? Then he formed DP. Then after that, Matiba came for the city. You know, by the way, the multipartyism has not destroyed this country. I think the multipartyism has expanded political freedoms in this country. It has expanded the democratic space, and it's the one that we want to enjoy today. This is why we're thinking of calling the political parties, because of that multipartyism, because that democratic space is now available. But what we're saying is, I think it's time you heard about the rest of the country. You have always had leadership and governance from a particular regions of this country. Why don't you get an alternative? Why don't you hear about leadership from other parts of this country? So the other regions, you know, of this country, when you look at the map of Kenya, an entire 3/4 of it up there that you rarely hear about, and the opportunities. It's not about lack of opportunities. It's just that nobody wants to put a shilling in it. What we're saying is that if it's time you get an alternative, really, to just focusing leadership from, you know, governments from a particular regions. And I think we are not just looking at governments. In our case, our concern is about really the issues for the livestock. I think in the short term, that is what we want to focus on. It's about changing our lives. Nobody will look after the lives of your people. You have to address the lives of your people. That's why we are represented. That's why we have parliament. That's why we have those people. So
one of the main problems these areas have been having is clan rivalries.
It's true.
The Kodia, who is Ajuran, is who, the Turkana, Pokot. Apart from even fighting for resources, maybe fighting for water, fighting for livestock. Is this party going to sort out those things? Because Somalia, the country is Somalia, it's ruined because of that. It's like Rwanda and Burundi. They speak the same language, but clans differences, they are destructive.
Well, it's true. I think it's insecurity arising from the conflicts within the communities. Ethnic conflicts have been the single biggest challenge that we've had for many years. And when we set up this pastoralist leadership summit, one of the main objectives, actually last year's meeting in Narok, the focus was on security. This year, the last 12 months, security has improved in most of those areas. And this is why we are looking at other issues of livestock marketing and so forth. That was the focus when we were in Isiolo. But you know, it's important to go into the genesis of these conflicts and really find out what is it about. When you look at those conflicts, it's generally about the environment, about resources, about the limited opportunities for, you know, water has been scarce in some areas. That has been the reasons for the fire. So what we're saying is that 50 years after independence, we should have invested significantly in that area, so that conflicts arising from people moving around or water and those basic resources things should not be an issue. And we think in the long term, the more we invest in this area, the more we develop this area, the more they grow the economy and people, you know, improve their livelihoods and so forth, the less conflicts will be. Because now you have got a huge base of youth who have no other activity. They have no jobs, they have no access to institutions and so forth. And so they're engaged in all manner of criminal activities. And this is why we are saying let us focus. These are the issues we want to address, by the way. This pastoralism thing is not just about selling beef, and it's about addressing all those fundamental issues that are affecting the lives of our people.
But if you look at there are a lot of rich people from those regions, but they do business, serious business. They own huge businesses in Nairobi.
You're only looking at Somali community. What you're looking at here is these are 14 counties, have over 14 different communities. In fact, I think nearly over 20 communities live in these 14 counties. You have got the Maasai, you have got the Turkana, the Pokots. These are not about it's not about Somalis only. Somalis are just a small fraction of the
but it's the fact that they don't invest there.
You know, if you are a businessman, you will want to invest in an area where there is infrastructure, where there is, you know, the kind of, if you want to put a factory now, you need power. If you want to do business, you want to market, you look at your market, you look at the consumers. And, there are a lot of factors that determine why you move to Nairobi and not do it in Garissa or in Turkana. But I think generally you would not say that things are the way they were in the 60s. I think life has improved and people are doing business, but there is an opportunity for us to look beyond what we are doing now and expand, because let me tell you, you assume, look at this other parts of this country which are developed. You'll find that what is attractive development is the level of infrastructure, the level of schools and facilities that are available, communication, power. There are so many factors that attract people to go and settle. You want to go and put your house in a place where you can get all those. I think there are a lot of factors. So I think we're saying in the long term we'll also be able to do that.
Finally, I think this is fine. I may comment from a reader who says that what do you say about the Turkana wind power project that has taken a lot of land from indigenous people?
You see, land is one of the issues. You know what, it's good that you brought it out. Land is one of the key issues you want to address. This constitution came up with community lands.
Yeah.
Community lands generally are in our areas, by the way. Those pastoralist areas is the areas where you have that definition of community land. And there's a whole lot of process involved in excising community lands for public use. But this is why the community land bill is still stuck in Parliament, because many of us don't feel very comfortable with the way the government wants to address the management of land in that area. So that if you're going to win a project like this one, what is the process that the government used to allocate that kind of land to that company? Did they involve, was there public participation? Were the communities there involved? Were they compensated? You know, if you want to, if power line just goes over your farm in central Kenya or Rift Valley or someplace, you'll be compensated even for that small piece of land over which the power cables. If it is in those other areas of ours, you'll probably find the government will do any activity there, put even an airport and do anything without thinking of even compensating. It's deemed that this is you know, public land and they can do, and yet this is a community land. There are people who have their animals there, they survive on this, they share the community. So I think land is one of the key issues really that is driving also our decision to form this political party.
Thank you very much, Bwana Senator. We are running out of time, and I hope other Kenyans will be with you when you are forming that political party, which name will not be pastoralists, because I would like to be in that party, but if it's pastoralist,
yeah,
it will be difficult.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Asante.